Morning, Steve Oliver, Whatcom County Treasurer. During the budget hearings, that was one of the services that I had listed as a service that was potentially at risk in terms of our ability to continue to provide that service with the reduced resources.
And is the reason
this is part of an ongoing discussion that Public Works Director Abart and I have been having for quite some time about the needs-based program.
Is that because it takes a lot of time to verify that someone qualifies for the needs-based program and things like that?
Well, it's been, it is, qualifying somebody for the program is, does take, a fair amount of time to do. It has become more difficult recently with some changes to the way that DSHS has made some changes, and we can't access some information that we need to determine whether they're qualified for the program at all now. So it makes it just makes it very unwieldy at this point.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, I see. And your thing eliminates the needs base, so that would just go away. Okay.
County's not in that business.
I think it was Brenner and then Weimer.
Well, I don't think we can eliminate the needs base until there is something set up, and it's like, I think we should find out legally what we are. I brought that up originally, that maybe we could go through that nurses group out on the island, and however, any groups would be fine, but we need to set that up for one thing. On the other email we got, and both of these were after midnight, so I'd already, like I said, turned off my machine. But the other one that we got was, apparently there are some people on the island who have put together a group that are wanting to work on this too. Even if we don't end up doing what they want to do, wouldn't that be a good idea, since we're talking about a pretty dramatic change?
Councilor,
I'm just thinking we could say, fine, you've got 2 weeks, come up with something. I don't want this thing to stall, but I really want to make sure there's the kind of public input from the islanders before we say take this or leave it.
Councilor Weimer.
Well, I'm totally in favor of moving something forward today just to keep the process moving along. I don't think I'm going to support the motion because that's not my favorite of the bunch, and I haven't really had time to work through them. I think Mr. Mann's proposal has some interesting things. I hope whatever ends up passing today that we can get some answers from Public Works. I just got this email too that looks like it was sent at 4 a.m. this morning. Someone was up early thinking about ferries. Because some of the same stuff jumped out at me, whether some of these repair and maintenance costs, the shivs, so to call, over the last few years, whether those ongoing are really going to be ongoing costs, or if that was a one-time thing, and so if that's been built into the rates. It also looks like the administrative overhead and all the help out of Public Works, according to this, Frank, you're spending 1 day a week just on ferries, which I certainly can believe in the last 6 months, but I don't know ongoing whether that makes sense. So I think we need to really take a sharp pencil out and see if a lot of this costs that we're passing on into these fares into the future really are fair to pass on to the folks of Lummi Island. The main reason I'm not going to support the current proposal is I think just the overall $2 increase on everything really tends to go backwards on what we've tried to do with foot passengers versus vehicle passengers. And when I did an analysis of the vehicle passengers on the ferry, we're leaving the ferry empty 50% of the time. We're only using 50% of our vehicle capacity. And that's because we've raised the rates on the vehicle fares and drove people to be in passenger fares, and we really need to look at a way to fill up that ferry with vehicles so people that maybe are forced to be in passengers at this point might take their cars more often if they got a discount to do it at times when the ferry's not full. I haven't figured out how to do that because we only collect fares on one side, which makes it impossible to do a real needs-based ferry fare back and forth, you'd have to start collecting fares both ways, and that probably increases all kinds of other costs. But I think that's something we need to look at, because it's clear that the ferry's half-empty vehicle-wise most of the time. So I'm not going to vote in favor of this today.
Okay, the motion is to request the administration develop an ordinance based on option number 6 with eliminating the need-based pedestrian and the need-based, the need-based vehicle with driver. Any further questions or discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, motion fails 3-3 with Kirschner, Nelson, and Crawford in favor, and Brenner, Mann, and Weimer opposed. What else? Councilmember Kirschner.
I'll move to move option 6 forward, with leaving the needs-based fares in there, just so we have something to give to Public Works to work on.
Okay, the motion is option 6 as originally presented to us 2 weeks ago. Moving that forward to the administration to prepare an ordinance. Councilmember Brenner.
Would you take maybe a friendly amendment to look at the style of option 6, but remove the docks?
How would you go about doing that?
Well, it would take the dock costs out and then work on that same formula, but maybe come up with different amounts because of the docks removal.
I'm thinking they are two separate issues. Go ahead, yeah. I'm not opposed to looking at the information that was presented, Councilmember Brenner, but I don't know how that works into kind of giving them a direction on the system they're going to use to establish the ferry rates. It would, so, if you can clarify.
Yeah,
I can since I made the motion, I'd like to clarify it. Excuse me.
Well, it's not a motion, but you asked if she'd
Since I
accept
made
a
the
friendly amendment.
Friendly amendment. The option would be an overall decrease of 7%. It would likely change the surcharge. Excuse me. It would likely change the surcharge amounts, and I just think that that's a really important part of it if we're going to do that. Doesn't mean I don't want to look at these other things. It just means I think we should at least start off with that. That used to be part of the road fund. I cannot fathom how that is not considered. These are not movable parts. They're the docks. They're no different than two sides of a bridge. And that was changed for convenience and for more money. But it wasn't changed because it meant it was reasonable.
I'll speak against, well, there's no, you're asking for a friendly amendment, so I would encourage the maker of the motion not to accept the friendly amendment. The formulas for calculating what is maintenance and repair as opposed to replacement have been discussed by this council, I won't say ad nauseum, but something close to it for many years. I think the formula that the Public Works is currently using is fair, but whether you think it's fair or not, keep in mind that we're not talking about reducing any cost to the county taxpayers here. We're talking about shifting a tax burden onto the rest of the road fund payers if what Councilmember Brenner is proposing is done. And we can, again, we have in the past, and we will probably into the future continue to argue about what qualifies as maintenance and repair as opposed to what qualifies as replacement. But I think that I appreciate what Ms. Ging is saying in her memo here, but it is a formula that we've landed on that is, in my opinion, fair and possibly more than fair to the islanders to say that the maintenance and repair of the docks is part of a system. One way we describe the system is 7 components. And let me see if I can remember all of them. It was the parking, the approach to the ferry, and the dock. No, the approach to the ferry, the dock, the ferry, then on the other side, the dock, the approach off the ferry, and the parking. And, you know, we clearly have some items that are repair and maintenance, and we clearly have some capital improvements in those areas. I think we've done a good job drawing that line, and I don't want to start messing with that formula again. That's my view on it. Councilmember Brenner?
Well, I'm for looking at, you know, charging fair costs on the parking, which we're not doing. So it just seems like we could make a trade that would give islanders different options if they wanted to save money or if parking was that important to them. There are other ferries around that don't have free parking or parking at all.
Well, I will agree with that aspect. I definitely agree that we need to look at parking costs and generating parking revenue. I
Well,
don't disagree with that.
I would like to trade that look for the other.
So, did you want to comment on that, Councilmember Nelson? Because I think we have a request for a friendly amendment. Did you turn down that request, Councilmember Kirschner, or are you still considering that?
I'm not sure I'm not sure how that would be. Do you have a number? Do you want to change the number on the target goal? Is that
It
what
would
it would be?
require a number change. I don't have that number, but it would require that.
Well, I'm thinking that we're giving direction for a method, and I'm not thinking that we are tying ourselves to this number. And I'm thinking that when we had an ordinance in front of us, we could make adjustments to it. I'm hoping that would be the case. Is that correct, Mr. Abart? That we're giving you a direction to go to create an ordinance that then we would have before us again?
That's correct.
Would it be possible for Ms. Brenner's comments and concerns to be discussed and taken into consideration there, or does it need to happen here?
I would think anything you still wanted to discuss at that time would still be part of the introduction process. Any changes?
Yes, the answer is yes. If you have an ordinance hearing and you want to make changes, you can certainly make changes. Okay. Councilmember Nelson was next, and then
Just, Mr. Abart, I had a question. Repairs and maintenance. When I look at, is that the, on your ferry fund operations, in 2008, was that the 18,563? Yes, right. 18.